Let's start with the introduction to science. Science has been derived from the Latin word scientia, which means knowledge. It is a systematized body of knowledge which may pertain to any subject or field of life. Science is organized common sense. Science is an interpretation of the natural phenomenon. Science and technology are playing an important role in our lives. They have become an integral part of our social and cultural life. Various activities are controlled and governed by science. It has helped man to acquire supremacy over nature because the modern civilization is a scientific civilization. This is an age where the modern society is completely drawn into the scientific environment, and science has become an integral part of our life and living. Now, we cannot think of a world without science because science is both the body of knowledge and the process of acquiring it. To open with science is a cumulative and endless series of empirical observations which results in the formation of both concept and theories being subject to modification in the light of further empirical observations. According to Kothari Commission, science is universal and so can be its benefits. Its material benefits are immense and far-reaching industrialization of agriculture and release of nuclear energy, to mention two examples, but even more profound its contribution to culture. In simple words, science is the investigation and interpretation of natural phenomenon which occurs in our life. So this is all about the introduction of science. These are some branches of science: space sciences, earth sciences, biology, physics and chemistry. These are other branches of science. Biotechnology deals with the development of techniques for the application of biological processes to produce materials for use in medicines, industry and farming. Anatomy deals with the study of internal structure of living things. Physiology, study of body functions. Genetics, study of inheritance and variation. For example, Darwin's law. Ecology, study of relationship or interaction between living organism and their environment. For example, ecosystem, biodiversity, etc. Parasitology, study of parasites. Entomology, study of insects. Cytology deals with the study of cells. So these are some other branches of science. Let's see the meaning of science. Science is the body of the nature and behavior of natural things and the knowledge that we obtain about them. Science as a way to explore nature as a subject to understand the secrets of the universe, as a long list of facts to be memorized. Physics is the best example of a science which has developed strong abstract theories. Definition of science. Science is the study of the natural world through observation and experiments. A scientific explanation uses observations and measurements to explain something we can see in the natural world. Scientific explanation should match the evidences and be logical, or they should at least match as much of the evidences as possible. Science is an interconnected series of concepts and conceptual schemes that have developed as a result of experimentation and observation and are fruitful for further experimentation and observation. According to James B., science is nothing but perception. Science is organized and systematic knowledge relating to our physical world. Science is classified knowledge gained from a systematic study of behavior of nature. Science is nothing but gaining of knowledge on the basis of experiences. Science is cumulative and endless series of empirical observation which result in the formation of concept and theories, with both concept and theories being subject to modification in the light of further empirical observations. Genius person, by their persistent efforts, careful experimentation and exact reasoning, have collected mass of tested information which we call science. Science is a process of thinking, a means of acquiring knowledge, and a means of understanding the natural world. Science is a quest for an understanding of certain aspects of human experience. It is a process of experiencing. Science is both a body of knowledge and the process of acquiring the refined knowledge. There are some definition that gives us idea about it is mean by science. Science is a multidimensional activity, and it is very difficult to search a universal acceptable definition of science. Thus, science is simultaneously a body of knowledge and continuous self-evaluative process of inquiry. This is all about the meaning and definition of science. Let us see the principle of nature of science. The scientific attitude. Scientific attitude, curiosity to explore their environmental and questions what they find. Keenness to identify and answer questions through carrying out investigations. Creativity in suggesting novel and relevant ways to solve problems. Open-mindedness to accept all knowledge as tentative and to change their view if the evidence is convincing. Perseverance in pursuing a problem until a satisfying solution is found. Concern for living things and awareness of the responsibility they have for the quality of the environment. The scientific method of inquiry. Scientific inquiry refers to the diverse ways in which scientists study the natural world and propose explanations based on the evidence derived from their work. Scientific inquiry generally aims to obtain knowledge in the form of testable explanation that scientists can use to predict the result of future experiment. For example, to determine how 4 fertilizers affect the growth rate of bean plants, how will 4 fertilizers affect the growth rate of bean plants? In a scientific investigation, there are 3 types of variables, that is manipulated, responding and controlled. Third principle is an accumulated and systemized body of knowledge. Science is a systemized body of knowledge that is based on facts gathered through observation, experiences, experiments, projects in order to formulate a verifiable conclusion or laws that serves as a basis of technology for the benefit of humankind. Science is a body of systematized knowledge accumulated and accepted. Their reference to the understanding of general truth concerning a particular phenomenon, subject or object of study. Any subject which is scientifically developed and consists of universally accepted principle is a science. Science is a body of knowledge which is built up through experimental testing of ideas. Science is a body of knowledge which shows a practical way of finding reliable answers to our questions we may ask about the world around us. Scientific knowledge is based on empirical evidences, identifies accurate example of data used for evidence. For example, much of the data about the sea floor is collected without direct observations. Scientists measure the time it takes for sound waves to reflect off the ocean floor. As science is a systematic and orderly body of general knowledge on system and order is an attempt to guarantee that knowledge is genuine knowledge in the first place. System means that each part is consist other parts and all go together to make a coherent whole. So these are 3 main important principles of science. The 3 facts of science are interrelated: content, context, inquiry. Inquiry begins with an understanding of current content knowledge. Inquiry produces new content understanding. Context set the goals and rationale for inquiry. Content knowledge is used in the new technologies that affect the societal context. Content knowledge influences policy making. So these 3 facts are interrelated with each other. Let us see the aims and objectives. According to John Dewey, an aim is one which foreseen and gives direction for a certain activities or motivate human behavior. Therefore, aims are the advantages or broad purposes served by studying a particular subject. In order to proceed for realization of the set aims, they are usually divided into some definite functional and workable units called objectives. Therefore, objectives are the ways and means of achieving the aims in a more particular and definite way of bring desirable behavioral changes. These are direct and concerned with the teaching learning process. Objectives of teaching learning science at the secondary level. The Directorate of Extension Program for Secondary Education, Government of India, in its brochure on evaluation in general science, sets some of these general objectives of teaching general science in secondary school as follows. The people studying general science should acquire knowledge of the fundamental of science useful to all in everyday life. They should develop the ability to apply the knowledge in everyday life. They should acquire experimental skills such as handling apparatus of an experiment, arranging apparatus for an experiment, preserving apparatus, chemicals, specimens, models, etc. They should acquire constructional skills such as improving simple instrument and appliances, preserving certain instruments and appliances for everyday life. They should develop drawing skills such as drawing and sketching certain objects, instruments and arrangements, photography in certain objects and specimens. They should be able to locate reliable recent information from appropriate resources. They should be able to interpret scientific data given in various forms such as tabular, graphical, scientific data, etc. They should develop the power of minute observation of surrounding. They should develop the power of oral expression in science to discuss, argue, describe and raise questions using scientific terminology. They should develop the scientific method in thinking and action. They should adopt the scientific attitude in making statements, accepting information and forming beliefs. They should develop interest in scientific reading and hobbies. They should be able to appreciate the impact of science of life, both personal and social, the struggle through which science has advanced, the inspiring work of the scientist. So these are the aims and objectives of general science and objectives of teaching learning science. Let us see the nature and scope of science. In the last 3 decades, some attempts have been made to understand the nature of science. Joseph J. in 1964 and Brunner in 1962 have explained the nature of science in technical terms, which is based on the idea of the structure of knowledge or structure of disciplines. According to this idea, the nature of science comprises substantive structure of science and syntaxial structure of science. The substantive structure of science represents the major conceptual schemes which constitute the basic knowledge used in science. The substantive structure of science contains different classes of statements such as definitions, knowledge, statement, etc. We may call them key concepts or major ideas. Example of such major ideas or concepts have been given in all major science curricular projects developed in. Example of major concept have been given in all major science or curricular projects. Thus, syntaxial structure of science is concerned with the so-called processes of scientific inquiry, means by which scientific knowledge is acquired and verified. These processes can be further divided into simple skills so that people can practice them without any difficulty. Some of the processes of science are as follows: observation, measurements, classification, hypothesis, formulating, experimenting, etc. At this stage, it is easy to infer that the nature of science has two aspects, that is the concept of science which build the substantiated structure of science and the processes of science which build the syntaxial structure. Both are equally important. Recently, a third dimension to the nature of science has been added, which has been recognized by workers, that is, this is known as the social aspect of science. Science has been taken as a human activity which influences society and is being influenced by society. The application of science to society and its impact of human lives are first as important as learning content and skills. In fact, some science educators have been strongly recommended a few emphasis on science teaching that include social, moral, ethical aspects of science. In other words, many of science technology are based on social issues that have moral, ethical and social relevance. Such examples are as follows. For example, pollution, acid rain, bioengineering, nuclear energy, etc. Scope of science. When we try to assess the importance of a subject school curriculum, we look at it from three angles. The characteristics of science, the utility of the subject, the cultural value of the subject. So this is all about the nature and scope of science. Meaning of teaching learning objectives. It is necessary for a teacher to accomplish the teaching learning of a specific lesson or topic within the definite classroom period and limited resources. Therefore, the teacher has to proceed with certain definite and specific objectives. These specific objectives bring about the desirable behavioral changes in the student. Thus, such type of objectives which analyze clearly in definite terms about the terminal behavior in the student as a result of teaching and learning objectives. Teaching learning objectives means teacher decided before the teaching learning process what will be the objectives or learning outcomes of that unit or of that lesson. So, teacher uses that instructional strategies which fulfill that objectives and able to understand the concept to the students clearly. Norms for determination of teaching objectives. Beside the previously mentioned basis, the following norms should be adopted for determination of teaching objectives: usefulness, suitability, appropriateness, practical use, educational philosophy, educational psychology. When teacher teaches a concept, it should be useful for the students. It is suitable as per the need of learner. It should be appropriate to the age of the learner. It should be practical use in their day-to-day life. The concept has that educational philosophy basis for determination of teaching objectives. Bloom's taxonomy of learning. There are three domains in Bloom's taxonomy, that is affective, cognitive, psychomotor. Bloom taxonomy of educational objectives. Taxonomy of educational objectives is intended to provide the classification goals of our educational system. The idea of classification of educational objectives was given by Dr. Benjamin S. Bloom of Chicago University, USA. He classified educational objectives into three main areas or domains called cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. The three domains are interrelated and mutually dependent. Let us see one by one. Cognitive domain, the recall or recognition of knowledge and the development of intellectual abilities and skills. Affective domain, the changes in interests and values and the development of applications. Psychomotor domains, the development of manipulative or motor skills. The three domains of learning do not occur in isolation but rather work together to make a one whole being. Cognitive domain includes those objectives which deals with the recall and recognition of knowledge and development of intellectual abilities and skills according to Bloom taxonomy. Benjamin Bloom and his co-workers have done the taxonomical classification of this domain in 1956. The domain contains 6 major objectives arranged in order on the basis of increasing complexity of task. Each of these 6 is further divided into specified behavioral objectives. First one is knowledge. This is the first and the lowest level of cognitive domain. It includes recall of information such as specifies facts, methods, processes, generalization, patterns, etc. Thus, the knowledge objective emphasizes what can be described as memory. Second one is comprehension. This second category includes translation, interpretation, and extrapolation. This second category includes translation, interpretation, etc. This is also related to the use of idea. It refers to a type of understanding of the materials or literal message contained in a communication. Third one is application. The third level includes the ability to apply abstract ideas to concrete situations. The abstractions may in the form of general ideas, rules or procedures or generalized method. Fourth one is analysis. It means breakdown of the materials into the constituents part. Fourth one is analysis. It means the breakdown of the material into the constituent parts and detection of the relationship of the parts and of the way they are organized. Analysis includes analysis of elements, analysis of relationship, and analysis of organizational principles. Fifth one is synthesis. This category is just the opposite of analysis. Synthesis is the putting together of elements and parts so as to form a whole. This involves the process of working with pieces, parts, elements, and arranging and combining them in such a way as to constitute a pattern of structure not clearly there before. Last one is evaluation. It is the assignment of symbols to phenomenon in order to characterize the worth or value of a phenomenon, usually with reference to some social, cultural or scientific standard. Evaluation involves judgment in terms of internal evidences as well as external criteria. To conclude, it may be pointed out the above 6 major categories in the cognitive domain do not always appear in isolation from one another. Second one is affective domain. This domain involves attitude, interest, value and appreciation. The affective domain is considered with feeling. The objectives under affective domain are difficult to define and evaluate. The hierarchy of objective in affective domain has been developed by Krathwohl, Bloom and Messier in 1964. The order of objective is in such a way that each category is more abstract and complex than the previous one. First one is receiving. This is at the lowest point of the affective domain. Receiving may be defined as sensitivity to the existence of certain phenomena and stimuli, that is, the willingness to receive or attend to them. Responding. Responding refers to a behavior which goes beyond merely attending to the phenomenon. It implies active attending, doing something without or about the phenomenon, or not merely perceiving them. Valuing. Valuing implies perceiving them as having worth or value. The 3 subcategories of these objectives are acceptance of value, preference of value, for a value and commitment. Acceptance of value, preferences for a value and commitment. Fourth one is organizing. This involves building up of organized system of values. The individual organizes a set of values such as truth, goodness and helping others in determining their relationships and deciding their needs and priority. Fifth and last one is characterizing. In this category, the individual displays the integration of values and it becomes a lifestyle with him. He gets these values organized into some kind of internally consistent systems which has controlled the behavior of the individual for a sufficient time. This category is concerned with one's view of the universe and one's philosophy of life. Third and last one is psychomotor domain. Psychomotor domain concerned with the attainment of neuromuscular coordination. Here the objectives which deals with the manual or motor skill. As the level of coordination goes up, the action becomes more refined, speedy and automatic. Simpson, Kebler were working on this area for systematically classifying educational objectives. R. H. Dewey has given the classification of educational objectives under this domain in 1969. The order of objectives in such a way that coordination is to be brought about among different parts of a given act or different act performed with required articulation. First one is perception. Skill of keen observation, skill of sensing a problem, and skill of developing self-motivation are the specific objectives under this category. Imitation, skill of repeating actions, skill of reflective thinking are the specific objectives under this category. Manipulation, skills to operate upon this intelligence and manage cleverly are the specific activities that fall in this category. Precision, skill of experimentation, skills of precise movements and neat execution of skills are the activities which fall under these objectives. Articulation, skill of logical thinking, reflective thinking, skill of mind and body, and development of mathematical skills are specific objectives to attain this step. Naturalization is the last step of psychomotor domain. As we practice a skill in due course, it becomes our natural habit. Skill of attaining success and skill of multiple actions are the specific activity under these objectives. This all information about the Bloom taxonomy and its educational objectives. Let us see the place of science in curriculum. According to National Policy on Education in 1992, every effort will be made to extend science education to the vast number who have remained outside the pale of formal education. According to Kothari Commission in 1964-66, science and mathematics should be taught on a compulsory basis to all peoples during first 10 years of schooling. Place of science in curriculum. Science has been given a core place in a curriculum. NCER. Science has been made a compulsory subject throughout the secondary stage of the school. UNESCO's International Education Commission. Science and technology must become essential components in any educational enterprises for all children, young people and adults so that they may acquire scientific turn of mind. For developing scientific inquiry, logical thinking, logical reasoning, science is important role play in curriculum. General objectives of teaching science or specific objective of teaching science. Inclusion of science as a school subject was supported by Kennan Wilson in 1967 as science is the best teacher of accurate, acute observation of what is. It teaches us what evidence is, what proof is, cause and effect relationship, scientific inquiry. For the overall development of child, that is inquiry, scientific attitude, sensitivity, punctuality, minute observation, keen observation, logical thinking, different types of skill development. Science is a important subject in curriculum. National Policy on Education. Primary level, it includes class 1st to 5th. Science is taught as a part of EVS. For example, health, environment, water, safe plantation, etc. As per the need of learner or as per the appropriate age of the learner. Higher primary level, it includes class 5th to 8th. The content of this level emphasizes observation, activity, experiments, practicals and the ability to draw. Different types of figures or labeling the figures, for example, respiration, photosynthesis, different type of food chains, metals, non-metal, reflect of light, different type of state of matters. These are the example for higher primary level. Secondary level, it includes class 9th and 10th, includes scientific information, facts, concepts, laws, principle, etc. Handling of science apparatus, conducting experiment. For example, using different types of chemicals, performing experiment, experiencing laboratory methods, handling the apparatus, conducting experiments, 9 to 10th standard. Higher secondary level for student 11th and 12th class, the standard will choose proper occupation after studying science at this level. For example, as per their interest, they have interest in science, so they choose the science field for their future. Place of science in daily life. Science occupy an important place in our daily life. Right from the birth to death, all activities are controlled by science. Safe and healthy life. Medicines are used to keep a person in good health and away from all disease. Production of new and useful things. Pressure cooker, washing machine, construction of building have modernized due to science. Improvement in communication. Internet, satellite, mobile, telephone, camera, recording, videos, film, etc. Increase in production. Quality and quantity of plants and animals, new ways of hybridization. So today we are completed very basic topic, that is what is meant by science, branches of science, place of science in curriculum, objectives of science, Bloom taxonomy, principle of science. So in this way we completed today's topic, that is introduction to science. Thank you one and all.